So the next thing I'd like to speak on is customer service. And because Etsy has a rating system, it's super important, especially if you're selling items that people can get cranky about. I don't think this happens so much to people who sell like candle holders and soaps and things like that, but in the wedding dress world it definitely happens, as I mentioned. So something I try to do is build a good rapport from the first message, and how I do this is by responding to them promptly. I'm probably a little bit too dramatic in how quickly I respond. I have the app on my phone, so sometimes I respond in less than a minute. But if a woman's looking for a wedding dress, I'll immediately congratulate her on her engagement. Or if she's already picked out her wedding dress and wants a veil, I'll compliment her on her dress. And it's a way of telling your customer who can't see you, can't read your body language, can't hear your tone of voice. It's a way of saying to them, I care about you and I'm safe and I'm not here to defraud you. And that's something I hear a lot from my Etsy customers is they'll have questions and I'll answer them and they'll be like, okay, now I feel safe that I'm not going to be taken advantage of, or you're not a scammer. Or sometimes they'll ask to speak with me over the phone, which I'm completely fine with. I would advise you, if you're going to do that, get a little business burner phone and don't give out your real number, your personal number. And that's just a way to protect you while still being a real human being, even though you're not necessarily in person. So yeah, customer service. Building a good rapport is great. It's great if everything goes well. It's even better if things don't work out super awesome. I've had more than one occasion where the girl didn't measure herself or lost a bunch of weight or gained some weight before her wedding and her wedding dress didn't fit well. And because we had a good rapport going into it, it was easier to resolve it. And that's why I feel like going the extra mile initially pays huge dividends. Early on in the business, I had a friend tell me to never lose the moral high ground with a conflict, and I think that is great advice. I had one customer who, for some reason, I don't know why, just sort of flipped out on me and started verbally abusing me, and it would have been easy to sink to that and engage her, but his advice just helped me to step back and say, okay, we're not going there. And I just told her, I'm sorry, we don't respond to verbal abuse, best of luck. And that being said, customers are, in my opinion, always right, up to a point. And for me, that point is if they're verbally abusive or if they're just sort of out to lunch. Like if they say my dress doesn't fit and they send me a photo, I ask them if this happens, and it doesn't happen often, but I just ask them to say lay the bodice flat and have a measuring tape on one edge of the bust to the other if that's the measurement they're disputing, to show, say it's 35 inches instead of 33. And every time I've asked a girl to do that, they've not sent a picture. So in my mind, they've gone to do that and then seen it was made to what they asked. It just didn't fit because they didn't take their measurements accurately. Another thing that I don't think many people fall into, but I do, is there was one case that the dad started emailing me at midnight. Don't respond to angry emails at midnight, because it's not going to get any better. You're just both going to get more tired and upset. It's okay to ignore customers at midnight. No matter how badly you want to make a sale, it's okay to have boundaries, especially if people are upset. It's a great thing to allow people to cool off, to have a good night's sleep, to allow their adrenaline to, go down and then talk. So I always like to respond to my customers, but it's okay to have breathing room too. And I think it's easy to feel like you're on an electronic leash when you have an e-business. But it's okay to take a break too. Your business is not going to go up in smoke if you don't respond to a message within a minute. So that's okay. I've sort of touched on this, but Etsy Trust and Safety is really hit or miss. There are some people that are awesome and some people who just don't seem to be with the program. There's not a lot of transparency or accountability there, so if you're going to interact with them, I would just be really careful. The person who initially reaches out to you is not going to be the person who's probably going to read your response. It's going to be a carousel of people. So just keep that in mind and know that there's no manager to complain to if you don't like who you're dealing with. And basically what they say goes, and it's easier just to go along with it than to get in their face. I've made almost 400 sales on Etsy, and I think I've dealt with Etsy Trust and Safety twice, maybe once. So it doesn't come up that often. Don't be frightened. Just know that they're not necessarily on your side. They're not necessarily not on your side. It just depends on the person, and it's very hit or miss. That said, it is nice if you have a difficult customer, you can reach out to them proactively and just say, hey, this may be a situation. And for me, that gave me peace of mind knowing there was one customer who was trying to blackmail me, and I just told them, hey, this is going on, and they're like, okay, thanks for letting us know. If anything worse happens, you know, get back in touch. And fortunately, nothing did. And I think at this point I've made selling on Etsy sound really scary. I don't think it's so intense for other items, at least I assume it's not, but the wedding industry is kind of nuts that way. So don't be frightened. Our petticoat end of things is very low key, prom dress, very low key, weddings, higher key. Another great tool for selling on Etsy is there's a Facebook group called, I think it's Etsyans Help Each Other Promote or something like that. If you'd like the name or to be invited, we can become friends on Facebook and do that. It's an invitation-only group, but it's really great. There's some girls who have really great advice, and it's nice to be able to just log into the group and message them and say, hey, do you have any ideas for better packaging? And then have people share what they do for labels or who they use for tissue paper. I think there's about 20,000 members, so it's a great resource of people. And I would highly suggest getting plugged into that. They also do some, they call them games. They're not fun, but that's the name, where you go through a list and like you give your shop link and people will go through and favorite 3 items or favorite your store or things like that to increase your traffic. And they are time intensive, but if you're really wanting to get your name out there, they are worth it. I have made 1 sale through them. I think their real strength is the advice and just the wealth of knowledge that's there. But that is one thing that's been really helpful. I've touched some on this, but just to go over negative feedback, it will happen no matter how great your product is, no matter how sweet you are. People bring things to the table that you have no way of knowing, and you may be on the receiving end of their bad day or a death in the family or who knows what. I have had to train myself not to respond right away because generally I'm really hurt and feel really, really, really bad. And I find if I just give myself time to think and reflect, my response is 10 times better. And there was one incident I responded to right away, and I didn't choose the right words. And if I had just cooled off for 24 hours, I would have written a much better response. That probably wouldn't have done anything to improve my customer's opinion, but your responses to negative feedback aren't really written for the person who's already upset at you. It's written for potential customers who are thinking about buying from you. And that's one thing I've learned to do is always thank people for their feedback. Even if they hate you, even if they hate your product, I thank them for their feedback because usually there's some insight there, and if nothing else, I'm being polite. And so I'll thank them for their feedback, express my sorrow at their experience, for lack of a better term, and that's a way for me to show goodwill not only to them, but also people who are going to read my response 5 years down the line. So essentially you are writing responses not for your current customer, but for any potential customer, and that's a way of showing that you care as well. I think people are able to give a lot more rope to someone who makes the effort to respond, who shows goodwill, as opposed to someone who just doesn't say anything in response.